Yo, what's up everybody? Welcome back to the build bench. Today I thought I'd just do a quick video, basically running through like the 10 things sort of not to do when either planning out your PC build or building your first PC build. Either way, most of you that are listening or watching this video that are experienced builders will be like, well, duh, obviously, sort of thing. But as we know, there are people out there, including all of us, that technically first built a PC. We probably didn't really know what we were doing. So I just wanted to run through 10 things quickly that might catch, like I said, new builders out. So first one we're going to cover is cheap power supplies. So basically, never skimp out on a power supply. Never buy. I mean, I won't even buy used power supplies because they're not overly expensive for a good one. And you really want to trust your brand new rig on a used power supply that you don't know how it's been treated. So don't buy a used power supply, I say. Don't buy a stupidly cheap, like Chinese brand, garbage capacitor power supply. Always look for the 80 plus logo on the power supply. Ideally you want to go for 80 plus gold. Now the 80 plus gold logo, these are logos here. So you got bronze, silver, gold, platinum, titanium, and they basically just talk about the efficiency, depending on like how much of the power supply is being used, sort of thing. So like 100% usage on a gold is 87%, at 50% is 90% efficient. So I wouldn't go anything, it depends on your use case, but I wouldn't go silver, bronze or white. I would only go gold, platinum, titanium. But obviously the higher in this rating you go, sometimes the more expensive a power supply can be. Now the power supply I use in my rig personally is an RM850X by Corsair, which is an 80 plus gold power supply. It's great for what I need. A lot of people get pulled into the whole, oh, I need a 1500 watt power supply. No, you don't. Even with a 4090, it's been proven by plenty of people, Jace 2 Cents, Linus Tech Tips, Paul's Hardware, Gamers Nexus. It's been proved that you don't need a 1500 watt power supply for a 4090 and like a 7800 X3D or a 14900K. It's just, people say it's future proofing, but it's just stupid and a waste of money. It's not even future proofing, it's too much. Now, going to like cheap power supplies, there's a couple of problems like with cheap power supplies. Like obviously you've got the cheap, nasty, like Wish sort of power supplies that are using just the shittest capacitors inside them. They're not Japanese capacitors or anything like that. They're just garbage. They probably don't have the right like safety things inside the power supply, so there's no like overcurrent protection or anything like that. Running a cheap power supply like that, no matter whether like even if the branding on the power supply whatever says that it's powerful enough to run your components, it probably isn't. And the problem is you use something like that, and if it hasn't got like an overcurrent protection or anything like that, you risk killing your motherboard, killing your graphics card, killing your CPU. Is it worth the hundreds or thousands of pounds, dollars, whatever, killing your components because you wanted to skimp on a power supply at like 50 quid, dollars, whatever, when you should have just doubled it and spent the 100, because now you've got to spend way more money replacing the rest of your components. So yeah, don't buy a low cost unit, don't buy a poor quality unit. Just make sure you look into it. I think Gamers Nexus have an actual list. I know there's a list somewhere on basically ranking power supplies. If I can find it, I'll post it in the description, like a link to it. Now the second thing is purchasing components that aren't compatible with each other. And now, like, when I say this, I mean anything from, like, obviously your motherboard and your CPU not compatible, so trying to fit like an AM5 CPU into an AM4 motherboard, or trying to fit like an LGA 1200 like 10th 11th generation CPU into an LGA 1700 motherboard. It just won't work. Or like trying to go DDR5 RAM on a DDR4 board, or with a CPU that will only support DDR4, or so on and so forth. You can always check. There is a website that's based in the US. I think it's PC Part Picker, and I think if you put all your parts into that, it tells you if them parts are compatible with each other. So just do some research on what fits what before you rush in and end up buying something that doesn't fit, and then you gotta go through the whole returning process, and you're just adding more time onto building your PC. Number 3, now we're going to get into this, but I'm guilty of not doing this on some PC builds. But number 3 is forgetting to install your I/O shield on your motherboard. Now, most sort of mid-range to sort of high-end motherboards nowadays come with a built-in I/O shield anyway, on like the back of the heat sink, whatever, for the VRMs and all the power delivery and all that lot. What, like your cheaper motherboards usually just come with like a flimsy sort of shitty metal one. Sometimes, especially depending on obviously how cheap the motherboard is, how cheap the case is it's going in, sometimes they can be a pain in the arse to get in, because of the way they pop in. You end up cutting your fingers on it and everything. Like I said, I am guilty of not putting I/O shields on some builds. I have a build right beside me now that hasn't actually got its I/O shield on it. I know you're supposed to do it, but it's, yeah, like I said, I'm not going to preach to people. But a lot of the time you tend to find people forget to install the I/O shield, and you just can't be arsed taking the motherboard back out to do it all over again. Now, number 4, we've got not adding the standoffs for your motherboard into your case before you install your motherboard. Now, I'll just see if I can get a quick picture of them up, just for people that don't know what they look like. Basically, these standoffs, they're different length standoffs. They usually look like this if they come with your case or whatever. So basically what you have to screw these into the case first. Now you want to look at because they're not all the same, you want to look at like the pattern of where the holes are in your motherboard for the screws to go through, and put them in the right place into the motherboard. Now they just screw into the back of the case in the motherboard, or the back of like the motherboard tray. But you definitely want to make sure you've got them in before you screw your motherboard in, because if you screw your motherboard in without the standoffs on, you'll power it on and it will just short out on the case instantly. So you definitely want to make sure you've got them. If you didn't get any with your case, and like you bought your motherboard used or something, you didn't get any with it, like you can order them. Like, I mean, there you go, £7.49 for 380 pieces. Well, 380 different screws, but it's got standoffs in it, so they're not expensive, and it will save you a hell of a lot of trouble. Number 5 we're going to get into is installing fans the wrong way. Now, technically there isn't a wrong way to install your fans. It all depends on like the airflow of your case and how it's set up, and like what type of case you're using. But like if we look at just a picture of a fan here, like you see you've got the open side here with just the blades, and then on the rear you've got like the cage. I don't actually know what it's called, I call it cage. Usually on a fan, the airflow blows through the open side of the fan and out the cage side. Now there is a few fans out there where the blades are reversed, so it actually works the other way, but the majority blow that way through the open side and out the back, out the cage side. But like I said, in regards to putting fans on the wrong way, it all depends. It all depends on your case design, how you want your airflow set up, all that sort of stuff. In regards to my PC, because it's got a dual chamber on it and it's got a radiator at the top, so I have 9 fans currently in total. So the 3 bottom ones under the GPU, I have pulling air in through the bottom of the case because it blows it right onto the fans for the GPU, which helps the GPU to stay cool. The 3 on the rear, like the 3 on the back where you would usually put the radiator in a dual chamber, I also have on intake, so they're pulling air into the case. But then the 3 on the radiator, I have pushing air through the radiator and out the top of the case, so they'd be my 3 exhausts. I don't have an exhaust fan on the rear, but like on a normal case, let's just say 3 fans at the front, 1 exhaust at the rear, so on and so forth. So you'd want the open part of the fan on the 3 fans at the front facing like towards the outside of the case, and you'd want the cage side facing towards the inside of the case so the air gets pulled into the case, and then you'd want your exhaust fan the same way on the rear, so that pulls the air from inside of the case and blows it out the back. Like I said, these points are pretty simple if you're an experienced builder, but not everybody is. Now the next one is applying too little or too much thermal paste, or not at all if you ask me. Now I'm not personally guilty of this, I suppose a lot of people are, but different people will tell you different things when it comes to applying thermal paste or whatever. Me, I prefer just the pea-sized dot in the middle of the IHS sort of thing. Some people do like an X, some people do like 5 dots, some people squirt it on and fully spread it out with a spreader that you get with some thermal paste companies. Like I said, I prefer just a pea-sized sort of blob in the middle of the CPU, because then obviously whether you're using a liquid cooler or an air cooler or whatever, obviously once you put the pressure down onto the IHS from either the tower cooler or the block from the AIO or whatever, it obviously squishes the thermal paste out, which will cover the majority of the IHS if you've got the right tension on the screws and everything. So yeah, always remember to apply thermal paste unless the AIO or tower you're using to cool has got pre-applied thermal paste, then don't apply any extra. But yeah, that one's pretty, I think, self-explanatory. Now, number 8 is installing memory wrong. Obviously this is talking about the RAM. I'm not guilty of this either, but I think that's more because RAM is sort of keyed. Like you can try and force it in the other way, but obviously when you look at the RAM slots on a motherboard, there's like there's a little plastic bit, I don't know what it's called, it just looks like it's keyed to go in a certain way. So if you look at like your sticker RAM side on, you'll see like the sort of gold contacts, but then there'll be a gap and then more behind that gap. Now that gap obviously lines up with the plastic bit inside the slot, inside the DIMM slot. So if you line that up anyway, then the RAM's in the right way. Now when you obviously put your RAM in, make sure that it clicks into place, like the slot will make a click when it latches back on. But yeah, I'd say that one's pretty self-explanatory. I mean, I've heard of people getting it wrong. I don't know how, but yeah. And for number 9 would be plug-in cables from your power supply into the wrong ports. Now, I'm not sure this is so possible anymore, because if I'm right, I'm thinking aren't all power supply cables like keyed? So like you couldn't plug like, I don't know, you couldn't plug 8-pin CPU power into a PCIe. I'm pretty sure they're keyed. But if you're using some sort of old, like really old power supply, really old motherboard, so on and so forth, then I imagine it is possible. So I'd say you're probably best off checking your manual on that. But yeah, as far as I know, on newer components, you can't plug cables into the wrong sort of thing. The only thing I'd say in regards to not necessarily plugging stuff in wrong, but like if you're using, I don't know, if you're wanting to use like the RGB fans and you want to plug them in via ARGB or something like that, then you need to make sure, especially if your motherboard, which some only do, some only have one ARGB socket, you want to make sure you're not going to overpower that sort of ARGB port with the amount of fans you're going to use on it. So like on the back of most fans there'll be a sticker that'll tell you like the volts the fan uses and so on and so forth. Then your motherboard manual, or you'll find it online, it will tell you the amount of sort of power that can be drawn from a specific header. Now I had to check this because my motherboard only has 2 ARGB headers, and obviously having 9 fans, so I ended up having to buy, I plugged 3 into one ARGB header, just piggybacked them off each other into one header, and then I had to buy an ARGB fan splitter to obviously plug into that last header, and then plug all the remaining 6 fans into that, so you can do it that way. But yeah, as far as, like I said, as far as cables go, I don't think you can plug it into the wrong ports. Like, if I'm wrong, feel free to comment down below. But I would have thought they were keyed by now. I would have thought that's why, like the cable, like the end of the cable for like PCIe or CPU power or the whatever. Like, I would have thought they're. I think they're all like different patterns, aren't they? But like I said, let me know if I'm wrong. And point number 10, and this is aimed more at the blokes out there, because blokes are guilty of this, is read your manuals. Like, if you're really unsure about what you're doing, and you don't want to mess something up, just consult the manual, usually the motherboard manual. But consult your manual, because you don't want to go killing a part. Like, you've got all these new parts, you're excited to build your computer, and then you do something wrong and you kill a component, or you bought something, like I said in a previous post, in a previous point, you bought something that isn't compatible with another part of it. So always consult your manual, sort of thing. I mean, to be fair, if you have any questions, there is plenty of like groups on Reddit you can go and ask. There's plenty of groups on Facebook you can go and ask. There's obviously the PC Master Race Discord, you can go ask them. Even jump into my Discord and ask us. There's a link to my Discord on the channel, on the channel description. But yeah, there's always someone out there that you can get advice from if you need it. Like, I'd consult the manual, but I'd ask other people as well. The best people, I suppose, are people that are experienced in building systems. You can't really get any better than that. But yeah, it's so there are 10 points for new people building systems. It's one of them, building. I've said this to people multiple times. I don't think building a PC is difficult, especially nowadays compared to how it used to be. you're always going to be like nervous the first time because expensive components, you know, so on and so forth. It costs you a lot of money. You want to get it working. There's always something that can go wrong, especially with a PC. But yeah, if you do your research and you even like watch videos by like Jay's 2 cents or Linus Tech Tips, they've got build guide videos. I haven't got one up on the channel yet, but even if you watch their videos, they show you how to do it. It's not difficult. They're not difficult to build, and once you've got sort of your first one built, you sort of get bit by a bug for it then, and it won't be the only one you build, believe me. I started off building like my first ever PC, and then I got the bug for it, and within the same year of building that PC I built 4 more, just for the sake of it, because it's just a bug. But yeah, they were 10 points I thought I'd go through. Like I said, if you're an experienced builder, you don't really need to be watching this video. But there is other points I could get into, but not really like worth it. I mean, the only bonus one I would probably go would be obviously trying not to, it's not important on AM5, but on AM4 CPUs, trying not to bend pins on obviously the back of the CPU. This is what they'll look like, obviously. Land grid array versus pin grid array. So Intel use land grid array where all the pins are in the socket on the motherboard. So don't touch the bare socket, just put the CPU on it. Whereas AMD on AM4 back, not AM5. AM5 use land grid array again, but AM4 back all use pin grid array, and these pins are actually really easy to bend. And if you bend and snap one, you can get lucky and it can still work, but it's very rare. If you bend and snap one, you've more than likely just killed your CPU, and that's a lot of money. So that's the bonus one I get into if you've got a pin grid array CPU like an AM4, some sort of Ryzen. Just be very careful with what you're doing, and always look at how the CPU's keyed to go into the socket. Always look for the little like gold triangle on one of the corners and line it up with the little triangular piece on the motherboard socket. But yeah, so like I said, they were 10, technically 11 points now for new builders. I don't really think there's much more we need to get into, to be honest. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. We'll probably have a video up in the next day or two, I would imagine. I'm not sure what it's going to be yet. I'm still waiting for a few more parts to arrive to do some unboxings and reviews, stuff like that. So once they've arrived, I'll get them videos recorded and get them up on the channel. But yeah, for now, thanks for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.